evening. Welcome, everybody. We'll start this evening with the roll call. Suzanne?
Thank you. Mayor Levy?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Harvey?
Here.
Councilmember Carr?
Here.
Councilmember Matthews?
Here.
Councilmember Saunier?
Here.
Councilmember Sawyer?
Here.
And Councilmember Schaefer?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. If you'll all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda item number 4 and presentation of the Teller County Strategic Transportation Plan, and Ted Borden. Welcome, Ted.
Thank you very much. My name is Ted Borden, and I'm with Community of Caring Foundation and the Aspen Mine Center, also the chair of the Teller County Local Coordinating Council. Thank you so much for allowing us to present this evening. And with me is Ralph Power with Transit Plus, and Ralph is also the new executive director for TSC, for the senior coalition right here in town. So he'll be a face you're going to be more and more familiar with coming up. So what we're presenting on tonight, and Ralph is going to do the majority of the presentation, is the strategic Teller County Strategic Transit Plan. And this was a plan that was several years in the making. We've been meeting as a local coordinating council and as a work group for the past 6 or 7 years. And several of our members with the local coordinating council are here this evening. Ted Schweitzer, who is the manager of the Cripple Creek Transit. Mark Dettenreeder, county commissioner. And Karen Svedich is somewhere too, way back in the back there. So it's an honor to be able to present this strategic plan. That being said, Ralph has become very adept at presenting very, very quickly. So you're going to have to follow him quickly in your packets and on the screen. It's great information, and the culmination of this is going to be some implementation strategies over the next several years. So Ralph, of course, is very instrumental with TSC Transit here in town already, and so he's doing great things locally. Ted Schweitzer with the city of Cripple Creek, and so really this is a way to integrate services and have everybody come together to work on an integrated transportation plan for Teller County. So without further ado, take it away, Ralph. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. As Ted said, I have a 45-minute presentation and a 100-page document that anyone can look at, but I see your agenda, so I'm going to roll through this as quickly as I can. I might sound like an auctioneer at times, but if at the end of the presentation someone has questions, please feel free to ask them. And also, if somebody wants me to go through that plan with them individually, just contact me at the TSC offices and we can do that. So we started this project about a year ago, and so there was a study process, and what we did in that study process, we looked at the community, we looked at study area profile demographics that might drive transit, zero vehicle households, low income seniors, veterans groups, things like that. Who might need transit and where are they? We followed that up with a summary of the existing providers, both private and public, to see what was available to meet some of the transportation needs. We also went and did a huge community involvement piece, and this is where our plan kind of deviates from a lot of plans. We didn't just rely on demographic information that was available to us. We had a huge public involvement component, and I'll get into a little more detail on that. So those three things led to a gaps and needs analysis, and we looked at gaps and needs quantitatively and qualitatively. We had some mathematical models we use in the industry that I'm not that comfortable with, but the projections we came out with were fairly standard. We used a similar one for Ted Schweitzer's project in Cripple Creek, and the results were fairly accurate. So the quantitative side, and we also did the qualitative, and again, that was meeting with people individually, doing surveys, talking to people, and just getting out in the community. So all of that led to coordination opportunities. What coordination and service opportunities are they, and what are we going to do to address those? Of course, that's followed with funding needs. How do we fund this? How are things currently funded, and how much more money can we get from everyone in the community to try to make some of these services work? And then we looked at an implementation plan. So that was our study process. We looked at the study area. We found we have a high elderly population in Teller County. We have a high disabled population in Woodland Park, a very high veterans population throughout Teller County, especially up north of 24 and Highway 1 there in that area. And there's also, most of the services, of course, are in Woodland Park and Cripple Creek, as you would expect, because those are the urban centers. And we also found that there's a lot of commuter travel between Cripple Creek and Woodland Park. So those are some things we learned about the area. Then we wanted to look at the providers, who is actually providing these types of services. And, you know, on the public side, there's really just two. There's Teller Senior Coalition and there's City of Cripple Creek. And both of those programs have grown exponentially over the last couple of years. A lot of that's from CDOT funding that's been brought in, and I'll go through that a little bit more as well. But on the public side, we're the only two, and the other four are relatively high priced, and they have limited options as far as what they can provide. So anyway, those are the service providers in the community. And then we went into our community involvement piece, and we started with a community survey, which is summarized in the actual document if you want to see it. But we got almost 500 responses. We had a web-based survey. We did a lot of going to different venues and distributing, and we had a lot of volunteers. So it's a statistically relevant survey because of the high number, and we got some useful information out of it. Public bus service, specialized transportation, and volunteer services were viewed as most favorable in the community. 47% of the respondents believe that there's insufficient transportation choices in Teller County, but I think we all kind of know that. 67% of respondents support public transportation as an option, 32% like specialized transportation like door-to-door, senior, that type of thing, and 21% support carpools, van pools. So 51% of the residents said they would use public transportation if it was in fact available. And one of the things, and this is a recurring theme throughout this study, is one of the biggest barriers to using services is lack of information. Whether that's we can't use mobile apps, we don't have adequate links, we don't have good brochures, we just aren't out there. So a lot of people don't know what's available. So some grassroots level things we can do, and this will, I'll go through this a little in the future. Is just get out and talk to people and put out flyers, very simple things so that people know that we're out there. So after the survey, we did a public community involvement piece where we went out and met with people. We went to the LCC meetings. That was kind of our group that led the process. We went to Teller Senior Coalition meeting. We went to Teller County Resource Group meetings. We camped out at the 4th of July celebration, and we gave out surveys there. Ted Borden and I went to Colorado Mountain Estates Homeowners Annual Meeting, and we were able to secure probably close to 100 surveys there as well. And then we had a lot of people just pounding the pavement, out in buses, passing them out, talking to people, and so we ended up with a really, really good public involvement piece. We got a lot of valuable information on the anecdotal side. So all of that background information leads to our gaps and needs analysis. And so where are the gaps? What's the problem? Well, again, one of the biggest one is awareness gaps. People just can't find us or just don't know we're out there, and those are things we're going to try to address. We have infrastructure gaps that range from technology to sidewalk connections, difficult places for people in wheelchairs to board buses, that type of thing. So there's infrastructure gaps, institutional gaps, funding, lack of funding, particularly at the local government levels, lack of standards, consistent standards between systems so you can compare apples to apples. And information sharing. We need to do a better job of information sharing. So on the spatial gap side, Teller County Road 1 and Highway 24, probably not a huge demand, but there's enough demand to warrant running some sort of that service in those corridors eventually. And then on the temporal gaps, which is the hours that we provide service, there are huge gaps all around peak hours. We do things during peak hours, but other than that, we're not running. So those are gaps as well. And then our quantitative analysis told us that there's about 200,000 annual trips that need to be provided that we're currently not providing with the resources that we have. So looking at all of that, we went straight into, okay, what are our coordination opportunities? And we looked at two different scenarios. We looked at 1 to 2 years, and we looked at the low-hanging fruit in the 1 to 2 year time frame, and then we looked at a 3 to 5 year time frame because we anticipate the potential for a mobility manager who is somebody that's a staff person, and it's largely funded by CDOT, who would come in and take the lead on all of this. Because right now, everything's being done by LCC volunteers, and when you look at the implementation plan at the end of the document, you'll see some familiar names, and it's the same people over and over. So eventually, we need a mobility manager. But in the 1 to 2 year time frame, we need to get the grant back out for that. We need to develop programs to reduce duplication. A lot of that's already happening. We do cross-training with Cripple Creek. We're looking at some joint grant applications we've done and potentially looking at insurance. Is there a way to pull insurances or some other things? So there are some opportunities to do that. We want to be involved in emergency evacuation planning, not from a lead perspective, but from a support perspective. We have vehicles, we have buses. If something happens, we need to be part of that planning process. Improve marketing and distribution of information. Again, that's huge. I'll just keep saying that. Improve technology-based access to information. You know, Google Translate has some really good stuff. A lot of our things now are not compatible with mobile apps. And we want to do website links and, you know, upgrade websites that really put an emphasis on transportation. And then we also want to include veterans groups in the LCC. This project is basically a result of the federal government's initiative to get people to coordinate and to integrate veterans transportation. So we're making inroads to get that done, and Ted Borden's doing a really good job of involving the veterans groups countywide. So again, I'm trying to get through this really fast. So coordination opportunities, 3 to 5 years. Again, critical is hiring a mobility manager. And again, that will be, if that does in fact happen, that will be 80% funded by the federal government, passed through CDOT, but we will have to have local funding to fund the rest of that position. We want to work towards a one-call, one-click center, and that can be anything from like a 211 thing where you call in and information, you push buttons for information, all the way up to like a 911 where you have a live dispatcher that handles situations in real time. So, but the main thing is we want a single point of contact where people can get the information, and how that evolves over time, you know, we'll see as we go. At some point, we might want to explore the possibility of centralized dispatch. Can we better utilize resources by having better technology and only one person doing all this coordination as opposed to several, and that duplication? And we want to develop carpool and rideshare programs because those are also consistent. People think that's a good way to build service is to have carpool, vanpool services in, you know, high volume corridors at peak times. Anyway. So on top of coordination options, we're also looking at service options. What services are needed? And again, we're, you know, going back to how we set this project up. We came up with increased frequency of existing fixed route services. Some of you may not be aware, we do have a fixed route bus service that TSC operates. We're looking at ways to expand that with federal money, but we also need some local match to get that moving. We want to increase the level of human services transportation because that's huge. Of all those 200,000 trips that we identified, a majority of those would be human services trips. Develop a route that connects Cripple Creek with Canyon City, and develop a route that connects Woodland Park with Colorado Springs, and we are talking with Silver Key about possibly doing some of that. Silver Key down in Colorado Springs. Okay, so funding needs. I have 2 slides, and one of them basically outlines what it's costing us, the first one, to run existing services, and the second one, what it would take if we could have everything that we wanted in the plan. I can't get into a lot of detail because it's a very lengthy document, but if you have a chance to look at it on one of the web links or the hard copy document, I can go through and tell you how we developed this. But basically, over the 5-year period, we anticipate about almost $3.5 million to operate what we have in place. And if we wanted to do everything that we wanted to make things perfect in a transit world, it would double that cost over the 5-year period. And again, that's everything. You probably wouldn't want to implement at that level, but that gave us an idea of what it would cost if we really had a fully built-out system. So, so we want to do these things, but how do we fund them? Where does the money come from? FTA 5310 is senior and disabled transportation. TSC is getting that for the first time this year. FTA 5311 is rural operating funds. Cripple Creek has been getting that since 2013. CDOT Faster is capital money, and we will apply for different capital projects through CDOT. Aging services, Medicaid services, program and fare box revenues, public-private partnerships, self-sufficiency, veteran services, voc rehab, and workforce. So we have a whole number of resources, but we really also need participation from local governments. That's huge for us, and so that's something that you'll continue to hear throughout the process, because all of these options we came up with are not new. We didn't come in and reinvent the wheel and give you this magical product. All of this stuff has been around in some document form or another since 1999. So the needs are legitimate, they're real. There's just not a lot of progress happening on making some of it happen. Again, though, there has been some exponential growth with some of the transit things that have been happening, over the last few years. So implementation plan, I'm not going to really go through that. You can kind of look at that. We have implementation plan for years 3 and 5, and we put all of that on the mobility manager. If we don't get a mobility manager, then again, that's going to be volunteer staff that ends up doing those, making those tasks happen. So anyway, I guess I missed 2 slides. Implementation plan, and then finally, questions or comments.
What are we talking about here? A bus service, car service, handicap service, veteran service? I don't understand.
Every potential service that would help fill the needs in the community. Some of that is door-to-door senior and disabled service. Some of that would be fixed route bus service. Some of it's van pool, carpool. It's basically the entire gamut of transportation and mobility options for the area.
I don't see no buses running up and down the highway relieving congestion.
Not yet, not yet.
Well, the question I had, and I never used the service, but we did have a commuter bus that went up and down the pass for some time. David, what happened to that one?
The ridership wasn't there. It was a federally funded program. It was some years ago called the UPass Express. The demographics have changed a bit. Some of this is, though, between Woodland Park and Cripple Creek, correct? Yes. Where that one didn't do that. It was from Colorado Springs, came through Woodland Park, and had one stop in Divide. So we're talking about a different group of perhaps riders with what they're talking about here. But it did. It was a 3-year program. They bought buses. They subsidized the fare box, and the ridership just wasn't there to continue to support it.
I think one of the significant things about the UPass Express is that there wasn't a lot of collaboration with entities at that time because we weren't in existence, the local coordinating council. So I think that, not that that's the direction that we necessarily want to go, is a public transit like that. But we also have to really remember that at that time, there were a lot of the entities like the local coordinating council. The commissioners weren't as involved in that process at that time. So it was really a different era at that time, and the ridership wasn't there, but there also wasn't the initiative to get the information out to the public, to interact with some of the local agencies that can make that happen. And that's really what local coordinating councils are about, is about getting all of these entities around a table, whether it's social service types transit or human services transit, veterans groups and things like that. So I think that it's time to revisit that. And again, not that a public transit system is the answer, but a mobility manager where there is one entity or one perhaps dispatcher that can give information to the public when they're calling in. The Aspen Mine Center has given vouchers and things like that. We've had volunteer transportation providers, but there's not been anybody in the county or one-call, one-click services that could provide information in a comprehensive, integrated level. So that's one of the things that we really know is necessary. If we're moving forward with transit, we need to have a mobility manager to coordinate that. It has to be one hub rather than siloed services.
So the purpose then of this presentation is to talk about mobility between Cripple Creek and Woodland Park?
It's about Teller County Transit as a whole. I mean, we would love to, we need to accommodate all of the special groups out there like veterans, the people with disabilities.
I want to stop you there. When you talk about veterans, what are you talking about doing for veterans? So I'm a veteran and I have a car.
Right.
Are you assuming all veterans are out there on bicycles? I don't understand.
There's a lot of veterans that can't access services down to Colorado Springs, to the VA, to some of the resources that exist in Teller County. A lot of the veterans don't know that services exist because they're kind of hermited out there and they're hiding out. And we had actually veterans events last week that were kind of geared towards that. Identifying the resources that exist for all veterans in Teller County so that we can broaden their awareness. So it's broader than just Cripple Creek to Woodland Park, although they've made great progress, and Ted Schweitzer with the city of Cripple Creek providing that service at least once a week from Cripple Creek to Woodland Park. So it's a start. There's a lot more work to be done. But
if I could ask a question real quick, what's your goal tonight? What's your
This is about awareness. This is about awareness to the council. It's about awareness to constituents and residents of Teller County that issues in regards to transportation and transit are being addressed. We would welcome more participation in our local coordinating council meetings. We generally have about a dozen people at those meetings. We would love it if we had more representation from Woodland Park. In fact, this coming the next meeting, which is going to be on June 20th, and we're going to hold that meeting at the Senior Coalition. We would love it if we had great input from the northern part of the county. So we welcome people to attend that. 9 o'clock, third Monday of the month. They've traditionally been at the Aspen Mine Center, but we really would like to start spreading those around the county. So,
Ted, it sounds like leadership and certainly financing, funding are your two biggest issues. Do you anticipate this being a free service? Is that what we're pointing towards?
you want to address that?
You know, it's also situational. If we build a van pool program, people will pitch in for gas and to pay the cost of the vehicle, but whereas the capital might be paid for 80% by the federal government. So it's all, each service, each piece of service is individual. Some might gain program revenues from donations, like some of our services, to offset costs. Some might pay for themselves. So each individual potential option has its own set of finances and financial challenges that we have to address.
But it sounds like right now you're looking for the ability to have a coordinator for this.
Yes.
Okay. And
Yeah, that's the largest objective to come out of it, because one of the reasons that the progress is so limited, it's actually not limited if you look at what progress has happened since 1999, but we could do so much better and faster if it wasn't a volunteer-based effort. So that's why we're strongly suggesting going after a mobility manager.
John?
You've listed a number of potential funding sources. Does that come in as a grant, or matching funds are required, or low interest loan for capital investment, or a combination of various funding vehicles?
Same thing as my answer to Neil. Each situation is different. We have a 5310 federal operating grant that we have to match 50%. We match that with Medicaid revenues. We match that with individual program revenues, donations, and if we have to, we write foundation grants to cover the difference. So most systems have some sort of a dedicated local source to make up some of that. But yeah, each situation is going to be different, and each funding source has different restrictions.
All right. You have a good grant writer or writers?
But we do have some good grant writers, yes, we do. And so far, I think we're fairly successful. TSC had a pretty good 3-year run. I just finished an annual plan, and the gross revenues have doubled over that 3-year period, and a lot of that's transportation. So yeah, we have some people.
Ted Schweitzer with the City of Cripple Creek has been very successful in his grant writing and has actually received some awards for their program in Cripple Creek. So I think we have a lot of really good committed members of the local coordinating council. Absolutely.
Are you trying to raise $145,000?
Good question. We're trying to raise enough money to do what we need to in the plan.
Well, you're looking at a mobility manager of $70,000, estimated central web physical distribution $2,500 for development, $60,000 for purchase of reserve and scheduling software, and implementing software system $10,000. To me, that sounds like $145,000.
Everything you just mentioned, though, would fall under an FTA capital grant, so all of those would be funded at 80% by the federal government, and we'd only be responsible for coming up with the 20% local match.
How long does that 80% go for? 1 year, 2 years, indefinitely?
They reauthorize the transportation bill about every 5 years, but once you're in the hopper, you're there to stay. They may reduce your funding levels if you're not providing enough services, but once you're in and you're building good services, you stay in. And I was also involved in the Central Front Range component of the statewide transit plan as a consultant, and the Central Front Range is per capita is the lowest funded region in the entire state of Colorado, and that includes NECALG in northern Colorado, northeastern Colorado, and southeastern Colorado. So this area, as far as funding goes, is very much underfunded, and some of that's because until Mr. Schweitzer came in and started getting federal funds, and then my predecessor at TSC, there was not any federal transit money coming into the area. So now there is, and we hope to build on that.
Anybody else? Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Have a great evening.
Okay, we'll move on to item 4B, and Brian Potts to give us a presentation of the Regional Joint Land Use Study. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you very much, and good evening. My name is Brian Potts. I'm a planner, specifically hired on through PPACG to work on this study. We're on the early stages of this. Some of you may have heard some things about this, possibly. So I'll go right into it. And what is a joint land use study? 120 of these have been done across the country. They tend to relate to land use related to communities that surround military installations. Obviously, within this region, we have 5 installations that are down on the Front Range, but they do a lot of training operations up here. So their influence, as well as where some of the people that work at the installations live, there's a lot of interaction between the military and the surrounding communities. So part of this is looking at land use related to that. One of the things that's going to happen as an outcome of this study is that by the community and the military working together on finding ways to improve, in some cases, things like communication, or working together where there's development that's happening around the base and getting input in and communicating, that the idea is at the end there will be some strategies that are recommendational that will help local communities have tools when they're dealing with some military impact. And so that's kind of in general, the end goal of the study. This is a fairly large study in terms of geography and the number of people that live in this region. There's 4 counties that are within the scope of this study because of Schriever, who was just recently added to the study last month, Peterson Air Force Base, U.S. Air Force Academy, and Fort Carson, and Cheyenne Mountain. So all 5 are involved. And Pueblo, you'll see on this map that Pueblo Depot is on there, but that's not within the scope of this study because it's expected to be under closure by 2019. And then Pinyon Canyon is also, even though it's used by Fort Carson, it's outside of the region. The main goal of this is to look at where there's the most population and the greatest impact from military operations and community on the military. So part of this is going to be looking at a detailed land use assessment, looking at what are the land uses and development potential around some of these installations. And also, for example, up here with the HAMMET training, the High Altitude Mountain Environment Training that comes out of Fort Carson, or is launched from Fort Carson by troops that are stationed elsewhere in the country, there's a need to look at, what is the impact when they're flying over. And I know that there's been significant outreach, as I understand it, from Fort Carson, but obviously there's also room for improvement. So one of the key things we're looking for is that we have a public survey out there, which I'll talk more about later, where we're really trying to gauge from the public what are some of the issues they're seeing with military operations related to land use or quality of life issues. And so we have it's a 5-minute survey that's on our website. This is sort of the organizational structure that's typical of these joint land use studies. To give you a sense of where the funding comes from, 90% of it is from the Department of Defense. But essentially, it's funding to help communities look at how things can work better in their area and try to give communities an opportunity to find strategies to deal better with the military that's in their area. PPACG is the study sponsor. We're essentially the facilitators of this study. In February, we helped form a policy committee, which is made up of elected representatives that represent many of the communities and counties within the study area, as well as there's some federal and state agencies that are on there, as well as installation command. Now, all of the federal and installation command, they don't have a vote on this committee. It's only the local communities that actually have a vote when it comes to strategies or the direction in which the study's going, within, of course, the realm of the grant. The technical committee is made up of planning officials who are familiar with the regulatory environment related to land use, as well as the base planners who understand how development offsite may impact military operations. And to support the technical committee, as needed, based upon the outcome of the study, there are working groups that will look at one particular compatibility issue. For example, down at the Air Force Academy, you have some flight training that's going over certain neighborhoods, and there's concerns amongst the citizens as to, why are they flying over my house? Is there anything, and curious about what are some of these other planes that are flying through the area? And so airspace use. We have an airspace use working group that is currently looking at things surrounding the military's use of airspace and how that may also interact with private use. So this is the general structure of the organization, and PPACG is here to facilitate and provide professional assistance with this. Study partners, as I mentioned, this is just a brief list. And so far, one of the things that's great, especially with places like Woodland Park, is it's great that this whole community does a good job of working together. And that's one of the things that we hope will be highlighted when this study comes to its end, is that it's going to demonstrate not only where there's room for improvement between the communities and military installations working together, but it's also going to be an opportunity to highlight things that are working well. And so it's not just all about finding the things that aren't working. It's about more than that. Here's a list of some of the top issues that we're already aware of based upon conversations in some cases with planning officials, military, and also preliminary results from the survey. The survey has been open since the beginning of April. It's open till the end of May, but most likely we're going to extend that window so it's open through the middle of June, because we're starting to see an acceleration in the respondents. We're now at about 500 responses so far, which for this type of study is actually pretty good. By the end of it, we're hoping that we'll exceed 1,000 responses, if not more. Up here, as I said, with the helicopters that come up here to train, that's one of the things to keep in mind with this study, and I certainly encourage all of you to take the survey and give feedback on some of your personal experiences with maybe helicopters landing in land nearby you, or if things have been working well, as in the military addressed some change in route so they weren't flying over people's houses in a certain way. So we certainly are looking for feedback on a lot of these issues to make sure that we're heading in the right direction with the study. Public input is what guides this study. So part of what I'm doing is I've been going around to all the communities within the Fort County area and giving this kind of presentation to make the elected leaders and the public more aware of this study, and that there's a survey out that will help guide us. So that's the Speakers Bureaus. We've done a telephone town hall for all 4 counties. That happened in April, so there may have been some of you that may have received a phone call. And then we're also going to be sending out email updates in the future for those that do get online and provide us with email. Otherwise, we will continue to do this at certain points in the study when, say, we have some draft strategies and draft report. We will certainly come around and provide a presentation on what the outcomes have been thus far prior to finalization of the document. So in the next step, after we get all this input from the public, we're hopeful that this will really help guide the direction of the studies, identify the issues that are rising to the top that could use some work, or even highlight things that are working well. We'll work with various community partners, and we hope to have a draft plan ready by the fall of 2017. The study is currently funded through the fall of 2017, but with the addition of Schriever, we expect it to be extended into early 2018. So in 2018, there'll be a draft of strategies, hopefully a really useful document that will be a good tool to each community within this area, and then they can choose to implement strategies that seem relevant to them. So with that, if you have any questions, and please do fill out the survey on our website, and I'll take any questions you have.
Brian, the funding for this is all out of DOD budget?
Majority of it. 90% is DOD funding, 10% is going to be matching grant from DOLA, and then, of course, in-kind donations just from participants of the various communities.
And
yes.
give everybody a sense for the number.
The number of fund at this point is about 800,000 plus change. And given that this is a 2-year study, to give you a sense of how the other studies have gone in other parts of the country, this is, as I said, the first one in Colorado. Joint land use studies elsewhere have usually only involved 1 or 2 bases and lasted 12 months. I don't know of another study out there that has actually involved 5 different installations, which is partly the reason for the cost and the time frame. Yes?
One of my questions was, has this been done anywhere else in the United States? And it obviously has. How is this tied into BRAC? And will it have an impact on BRAC legislation?
And that is something that this is essentially independent of the BRAC process. There are 2 different ways to look at it. The Department of Defense is not going to really mention if this is something that is BRAC proofing is one of the terms that's thrown out there. What it does do is it highlights ways that installations are working with their communities, and ways that communities are showing where there's need for improvement. And so one thing that can come out of this is that it can be used potentially during the BRAC process to demonstrate the value in an installation's function in certain missions. So, I mean, the key goal of this study is not so much related to BRAC, but it's looking for ways that both communities and military can work together so that they're both able to do what they do better. So quality of life for residents is improved, and military operations are preserved or enhanced.
I did take the online survey, and I was a little disappointed that there were more questions that were focused on that relationship, the economic benefit for both communities. It seemed to be more focused on proximity to operations. Up here, aside from the occasional helicopter, we don't see that impact. But what we do see is an impact on our local economy.
Yes.
Why were there no questions that really addressed that?
Because this is more specific to land use rather than economic impact, it doesn't. We are trying to stay away from going through some of the other studies that have been done related to that. One thing I would recommend looking at is the State of Colorado Department of Military and Veterans Affairs put out a fairly substantial economic report recently. I believe it was middle of last year. And it's really great. It's on their website. Just in the El Paso County, as I understand it, it's about $17.2 billion of direct and indirect impact. And obviously, with all 4 counties, you're looking at a much larger economic impact. And so, obviously, it's a key part of the local economy. And while this is not going to study that, we certainly recognize that and are operating within that context when we're looking at these issues.
And one final question for
Yeah.
me. Why did they not include Buckley Air Force Base?
Buckley, because you're dealing with an entirely different metro region. While Buckley does do a lot of flying through this area, Department of Defense said that, if we go to where we start to do Buckley or Pinyon Canyon, or the scope of the project becomes gigantic. The operations at Buckley involve a lot of different types of flights. There's a whole other set of issues surrounding the encroachment of development around there. And so it was mainly looking at what is a nice region here, 4 counties, where there seems to be the influence of these installations and the surrounding land area, and where some of these troops either retire to live, and then the communities that are impacted directly by those operations. So, good question, though.
Thank you for being up here.
Thank you.
There's a lot of studies that go on. Yes, you agree with that statement. So you mentioned that there was a 12-month study done at another area that had 2 installations. When the study was complete, and because I'm not familiar enough, it's kind of new to me, were there any actions taken based on the results of the study?
Yes. In many of these cases, what will happen is that through the process of communities and installations working together, they discover things about each other in terms of their needs. So one of the things that happened in, I want to say it was down in New Mexico. There was New Mexico, El Paso. There was a fairly large region in terms of land area. You have a few different, I think there's 3 different bases in that area. One of the things the military didn't recognize was how some of their training operations were impacting livestock operations and agricultural operations in the region. And so one of the things that the community and the military tried to do was figure out, are there ways to mitigate that? Also dust. In some cases, you know, down there in the southern part of the state, there's a lot of dust that gets released from some of these operations, which of course impacts people that are living nearby. So they looked at how can we, you know, go about doing dust suppression. And so in our area, what we see is that a lot of what we're seeing so far is that the military and the community sometimes don't know who to call at each other's organizations when a certain issue arises. The fire departments have done a great job since some of the Black Forest Fire. Apparently, things were working way better than the one of the major fires prior to that. I can't recall which one it was.
Waldo Canyon.
Well, no, it was prior to that. I think it was the Hayman. Yeah, I think it was the Hayman fire. And so they were having trouble getting a hold of each other and coordinating resources, and they've worked on that since then. And so when Black Forest happened, they had some better rules in place, regulations, rules of engagement, and so forth. And those are the kind of examples where are there other issues out there where there's room to improve, where it's just the military doesn't know exactly what the community might need help with, if there is an opportunity. And the military may say, well, if something happens in the community, I don't know who to call. So part of that's also just building relationships in the community. That's a kind of an outgrowth of this.
And
that'll
I'm
be
glad
beneficial.
you're doing this now, but it's interesting. Fort Carson has been here since I've been in high school. That's 30 years ago.
Yes,
So why,
longer than that. Since the 1940s.
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious why this hasn't been done many, many years ago.
These types of studies, because there's only 120 of them, and as far as I can tell, this program wasn't initiated by the federal government until the mid-2000s. And so there was this change where they realized we need to figure out a way to work better with the communities around because it's going to benefit everyone. It's going to benefit the communities and benefit the military because frequently they are one and the same. I mean, we have a ton of military personnel that live throughout this four-county region, a lot of veterans that live throughout this region, and so it's good to figure out new ways to work together. So this is an innovative approach that had not been tried prior to the 2000s, and so far it seems to be paying off in many communities. Again, it all comes down to this report is non-binding. It's entirely recommendational. So my goal is that I'm trying to make sure that this is going to be presented in a way or provide information in a way that's easily digestible and usable for all the local communities, and that's my chief goal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you would consider a strategical operational command with the community for catastrophic events such as forest fires and other things, floods in areas that, as the military.
I'm sorry, you said the military is
part of a catastrophic event in the area. They would be part of a strategical plan to operate in that type of situation and help the community.
Absolutely.
Such as fires, floods.
Absolutely.
Devastating crashes and things of that nature.
Even things as simple as with buying salt for winter snow. There's been a talk of the city of Colorado Springs or El Paso County and Fort Carson maybe going in together on contracts to buy larger amounts and then share as needed if one community runs out. So there's looking for new ways to cooperate and help. And so with firefighting especially, I mean, that's a huge concern around here because that impacts everybody.
But also on the roads and the road maintenance.
Yeah.
And things of that nature.
Land use, yes. A lot of things that have to do with transportation, land use, and so on.
I see you have noxious weeds, dust control, and other
Yes.
things.
Yes.
Kenny, you have a question?
Interesting.
Anybody else? appreciate your time.
All right, thank you very much for the opportunity.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. We have no additions, deletions, or corrections tonight. Move on to the consent calendar, and Suzanne.
Thank you, Mayor Levy. This evening on the consent calendar, we have the minutes of the May 5th regular meeting with one correction that was brought to my attention by Councilmember Carr. I had Councilmember Sawyer present, and he wasn't present at that meeting. So I will make that correction.
I was here in spirit.
In addition to that, we have the approval of the March 2016 Statement of Expenditures. And then we have the approve and authorize the mayor to sign a contract with Adolphson and Peterson Construction for construction of the Woodland Park Aquatic Center not to exceed $11,852,305 and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and approve change orders up to and amount not to exceed 2.5% of the not to exceed contract amount.
Thank you, Suzanne. Council, questions?
Only for the record, David, if you would explain that although the bond that the city secured for the aquatic center, there are costs above and beyond the bond, and where that money will come from.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. The bond, as council will recall, was sent to the citizens to borrow $10.1 million that would be repaid out of the general fund and the 410 fund. We knew that that would not cover the full cost of the project, the design of both the infrastructure and the facility and their consequent construction. But we also know that we've had savings over the years that we've applied to that cost. So a combination of savings from both funds, the general fund, the 410 fund, and the utility fund, plus the bond revenue will be adequate to build this facility.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
So 10.1 bond is not the same number that's here. Could you explain or maybe you just did and I was...
Yeah, I think I just did, but I'm happy to do it again.
Sorry.
The 10.1 was to fill the gap between what we had saved and what we anticipated the costs to be.
I got it. Yeah, okay. I caught up. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Have we anticipated the cost of running this facility and how much it will cost to be involved using the facility?
Absolutely.
Okay. And we're in the black on it, it looks like?
No.
Oh.
The most municipal pool facilities run in the red, as do most other municipal sponsored activities. For example, our UPass Cultural Center doesn't pay for itself. It's subsidized by the general fund, as are some of our park and rec programs, or as is this building. This building doesn't generate revenue to pay for itself. It's from the general fund that we cover the costs. The Woodland Aquatic Project, though, at the direction of council, did a pro forma study. They hired Ballard King, as most of you on council will recall, and they determined that the aquatic center would have an extremely high rate of return. The subsidy amount per year from the general fund to run it, they estimated, would be about $98,000, above and beyond the cost for paying the debt service on construction. We are getting some indications that the numbers that the Woodland Aquatic Project gave to Ballard King were extremely conservative, and we think that the cost to run it, that gap will be closed. I don't have a good number for you, but we've built that $98,000, if that's what it ends up being, into the pro forma that goes out the 20 years, and we have the ability to not only take care of the debt service, but take care of the operational costs of the facilities. It would have been foolish for us to come forward to the community had we not done that.
I had not heard that, but thank you.
Anybody else? Motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Carr,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Levy,
Yes.
Matthews.
Yes.
Sonier,
Yes.
Sawyer,
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Before we move on, I'd like to introduce to council and the community the project manager from Adolphson Peterson. Ian, if you could stand up quickly, please. Ian was here with his team earlier today to include the project superintendent and the lead estimator, holding a subcontractor fair. We've done our best to reach out to the community on several iterations to bring our local businesses in. We've had great success with that. We don't know yet if they'll win the awards for the bidders for the subcontractors, but we're doing our best to get as much local business as we can. So Ian will be with us for the groundbreaking next Thursday, and we're excited. He's got great project management experience. He's been great to work with so far, and we look for nothing but continued success with Ian leading the charge from Adelson Peterson. So thank you, Ian, for being here.
Thank you, David. Okay, we will move on. We have no appointments or unfinished business tonight, so move on to number 9A and ordinances on initial posting. And Mr. Kip Wiley, welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to combine agenda items 9A and B and talk about them together. I would just ask for separate motions on both items. Ordinance 1282 and 1283 are closing the project for the waterline loop that was put in and installed for the hospital. Ordinance 1282 is the public utility easement for the portion of the water main that sits on the Pikes Peak Regional Medical Center Hospital property, and Ordinance 1283 is the portion of the water line that sits on Charis Bible College's property. Both entities have signed grants of easements, and we're before you for acceptance of these utility easements on initial posting and set the public hearing for June 2nd, 2016. Do you have any questions for me?
Thanks, Kip. Questions? Just a reminder, these are just to be considered on initial posting, and we will set the public hearing for June 2nd. No questions. And we'll call for motion first to consider ordinance number 1282.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes?
Matthews?
Yes.
Soinier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
And the same for ordinance number 1283, please.
Move to consider ordinance number 1283 on initial posting.
Second.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Soinier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kip. We'll move on to item number 9C and considering ordinance number 1284. We'll start with Wally, and then Ms. Smith would like to add on.
Good evening, Mayor Levy, members of council. Council will recall during the municipal elections in April, the citizens of Woodland Park approved a ballot initiative that would increase the city's sales tax rate by 1.09%. With that increased debt, the revenue derived from that increase to be dedicated to be used for the Woodland Park School District RE2. It's now ordinance 1284 will now amend Title III of the Woodland Park Municipal Code to conform with that ballot initiative. So before I ask council to approve this on initial posting, the city attorney has some additional language that she would like to read in.
Thank you so much, Wally. Mayor and council, what I would like to recommend to you is an amendment to this ordinance that would add the specific language that was in ballot issue number 1. It would be that language that followed educational purposes and started as follows, and I will just read this into the record. I would recommend that it be added as a recital to the ordinance itself, so that we add a recital that says, whereas educational purposes are mentioned in ballot issue 1, and those include, and that is the term used in issue 1, including providing financial support to the Woodland Park School District for needs such as post-secondary preparation courses, innovative school programs, technology, staff salaries, and facility maintenance and improvements, providing funds to allow the Woodland Park School District to eliminate its existing debt service mill levy by refinancing existing general obligation bond debt, thus reducing property taxes, providing funds to make annually appropriated payments under any lease purchase financing used to refinance any existing general obligation debt or to finance the costs of capital projects. And again, I read that directly out of ballot issue 1, and I would recommend we put that into the ordinance itself.
And that's in the third whereas?
I would create probably a new whereas, and I would insert it probably right after the third whereas. But you will see that in the second reading version.
Yeah, I like that because it reflects the ballot issue, and there won't be a lot of citizen uproar that, hey, what did you do with that kind of thing.
Well, and if you recall, one of the reasons that it's there is just for what you said. It wasn't as specific as we had liked, and so they came back with a better ballot issue, if you will, and so this includes everything in the ballot issue. Any other questions?
Since the citizens have graciously accepted tax money to go to the school system, I was wondering, and so I might forget it next council meeting, if we could have one of the school board members come up every 6 months, maybe do a presentation on how that money's being spent, if that's even possible. So if Dave, if you could look into that, or I can talk to the school board and see if they could do that, because we are now, our sales tax in our city could affect other things, but we are giving it to the school system now. So I'd like to know how that money's spent.
Sounds good. Any other questions relative to Ordinance 1284 on initial posting? Okay, we'll call for a motion.
I move to approve with the language that the city attorney has cited for ordinance number 1284, initial posting.
Second.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Matthews?
Yes.
Swinier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Wally.
Thank you, Council, and thank you, Councilman Carr, for bringing that to my attention.
Okay, we're on agenda item number 10. Before we go forward, I'll read the following. Council members use electronic devices to access the materials relevant to the public hearing before us. Be assured that it is the common practice of this city council that these devices are not being used for texting, emailing, or other communications during public hearings. And that said, we will move on to 10A, and Laura Pellegrino, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Levy, members of council. Good evening. Today's presentation is the City Council review and authorization for the Loft House condominiums. It's a conditional use permit and concurrent site plan review to approve section 1809090N4, which is to allow for residential dwelling units, 5 or more attached on this particular site within this particular building. And it is ultimately to allow for a 9-unit condominium complex. Quick overview of the process. This case for the CUP and the site plan review did go to the Planning Commission for public hearing at 7 o'clock on April 28th, 2016, and it was approved and recommended for approval to council by the Planning Commission at that time. First reading on the ordinance was at 7 o'clock on May 5th, 2016, and tonight we are here on May 19th to have the public hearing on this particular case. So the first map is a site map, shows the general location of the Loft House proposed site. You can see on this map it's shown with a red dot. It's pretty much in the east end of the downtown area of the city of Woodland Park, just north of the Highway Highway 24. This is an aerial photo showing a little bit more detail within the site and surrounding the site. The site itself is shown in a red boundary, and it encompasses 3 lots, lots 7, 8, and 9, within this old subdivision. You can see immediately around it, I've labeled some of the uses that are existing. Henrietta Street is a right-of-way, a 50-foot right-of-way immediately to the south. And on the south of that is the Ute Pass Cultural Center, the Woodland Park Public Library, and History Park. So this is a very unique site with a very unique proximity to many public facilities within the area. Immediately to the west, you can see our single-family residences that have been developed and built. Immediately to the north are more. On the other side of this 50-foot right-of-way, which is an unimproved right-of-way, so it is not a vehicular right-of-way, although you can see that there's a social trail that goes through here connecting South Avenue. Anyway, just to the north and to the west, these are single-family residential units that have been built and are currently being lived in. This site immediately to the north, this open space immediately to the north of the site is an open space owned by the City of Woodland Park. Currently undeveloped at this time and unimproved, but you can see social trails going through it from the north and from the south, connecting it to the trail that goes along South Avenue. Immediately to the north and a little bit east is a multifamily unit, currently undeveloped site, which is an expansion of what you'll see as far as the Village Loft townhomes that are to the north. The areas have been platted for further additions to townhomes, but again, they have not been developed. So that's what you're seeing there. To the east, you're seeing single-family residences and the continuation of Laurel Street through a parcel of land that is actually a residential parcel, but that the city does use as part of the right-of-way, and the street is within that right-of-way. So that's just a very brief overview of some of the surrounding land uses and what you're seeing surrounding this site. What this doesn't show you is that this is sort of on a ridge. It is a high point in this area, and it's highly visible. The site is a highly visible site. This map is a zoning map showing some of the surrounding zoning. The site itself is in blue, which is the Central Business District, Zone District. You can see that everything to the south of this site is Central Business District. To the north is the Neighborhood Commercial Zone District. And then immediately to the north, above the site, is the multifamily unit, multifamily urban, density type development that encompasses those townhomes. And everything in yellow is the urban residential zone district. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the surrounding zones in this area. And our site is right there, which is, again, CBD. This is looking straight on. This photo on the left was the assessor's photo taken right from their website. And it is probably what most of you are used to seeing when you think of the Loft House. It has stood in that condition for many, many years and has deteriorated over time. I wanted to show you what it looks like actually this afternoon. I went this afternoon and took a picture. This is post-May 11th demo. On May 11th, the Habitat for Humanity organization, in conjunction with the volunteers, 250 plus volunteers from the Home Depot came and they executed a demolition. And it was a partial demolition whereby they removed some of the windows and doors, some of the siding, and some of the landscaping that you can see to get it ready for the Builders Blitz. And I will not talk in detail about the Builders Blitz. I will let the applicant, Habitat for Humanity, Jamie Caperton, and Ken Hartsfield, who's the architect for the applicant, talk about the Builders Blitz and give you more details on what's happening with that. I can tell you it's going to be in the beginning of June. They have the actual dates, and we are awaiting the building permits for that. But on May 11th, they did get they successfully executed a temporary use special event permit for the demo that we see resulting today.
Laura, could you do me a favor and just pull the microphone down a little bit?
Yeah, I'm
Thank
too
you.
short.
That's great, thank you.
These are 2 photos taken from Google Earth, and it shows just from Henrietta looking towards the Loft House and what you would see, and these photos are from 2009. So again, these are way before any kind of a demo started happening, but at this time the Loft House was vacant. So it gives you an idea of the footprint, which is not proposed to change with this proposal. It gives you an idea of what it looks like, the scale, the massing, the scope of this project. And again, we're not looking at, the applicant is not looking at changing the footprint in any way. This is some of the views looking to the east facade, which is the bottom picture, and then at the back and the west facade, which is the top picture. And again, those are 2009 photos from Google Earth. So that was vacant conditions. This is the site plan proposed by the applicant, showing the layout for the parking, showing some of the landscaping that will occur and the changes along the front here, which is being proposed for a retaining wall that will be right along the front. They are looking at a sidewalk that will front along Henrietta Ave and then go up Laurel Street to the extent that it'll follow the perimeter of the site property. And then you can see the footprint, again, which is not going to change. So this is the existing footprint. So some of the site work that you are seeing is just the layout of the parking and how that will work. What they are looking at doing on this one is closing off the access to Henrietta, the south access. And here they're proposing to have a sidewalk. That could, not a sidewalk, but an entryway, stairs going up into the site from Henrietta. That could change. This is just a proposal at this point. We haven't received the full construction set drawings. The access will be proposed off of Laurel Street, coming into and out of the property. And the fire department has looked at that access, has looked at shutting down the access at Henrietta, and have no concerns with that at all. This is just a demonstration of what the floor plans might look like. The applicant is proposing a total of 9 units. 4 will be 3-bedroom units, 4 will be 2-bedroom units, and the lower unit, which I didn't show the floor plan here, but it is in the staff report, is a single-bedroom unit. So a total of 9 condominium units with this proposal. These are some elevations proposed by the applicant, showing you, again, the footprint and the general massing of the building really isn't going to change. What they're proposing are, they've taken out the decking already, and they're going to replace it with what you see here. They've put shutters on, and they're going to add new windows, new doors, new siding. It'll all be refinished, refurbished with that type of a look that you see here. The applicant did submit swatches, color renderings. Grays and blues are the colors that they're going to go with, so we're going to get away from the salmon color that you see there right now. And it will harmonize with the surrounding buildings and the general area. Staff did a full review and analysis of this site in compliance with the municipal code. We also referred it to various internal and external agencies for their comments and concerns and suggestions. Utilities within the city looked at it, Public Works, Police Department, Economic Development, and the Building Department all looked at it. Northeast Teller County Fire Protection looked at it. IREA, Black Hills, Baja Cable, CDOT, and CenturyLink all looked at it. And the comments were sent out with the staff report and were fairly minor in nature and can all be addressed through the building phases of this next phase of construction. Tonight's council hearing and all previous public hearings were notified. The adjacent property owners were notified. We put a poster on the site notifying everybody that drives by of tonight's hearing. We also published tonight's hearing in the Pikes Peak Courier. Again, as I mentioned before, the zone district for this particular site is section 18.23, which is the central business zone district within the city of Woodland Park. Now, the central business zone district is intended as a downtown area, which this is in the east end of downtown, to provide commercial uses that are accessible to pedestrians and to the public. And typically, it'll have a high density, a design that's appropriate for high density, and consideration to corridor improvements that may be necessary. Street parking, landscaping, pedestrian mobility, and residential type uses are encouraged within the CBD zone district. There are a whole slew of permitted uses within the central business zone district. For instance, a motel, a hotel, and a lodge is an outright permitted use that wouldn't have to go through any kind of a site plan review or approval within the central business zone district. A bakery, a grocery store, those types of uses are outright permitted. What we are looking at tonight is a conditional use, which is why it is before council. It is a conditional use for a 5+ attached dwelling units, and as I said before, the proposal is for 9 condominium units within this structure. I also listed other typical conditional uses that would also go on this site, just for interest. Things like a trade school, a church, a hospital, a nursing home would all be viable conditional use permits that would have to go through approval by council. Staff also did a review of the CBD zone district with respect to this proposed use, found that it complies with the height requirement, and again, the height is not changing, so it's great that it complies with the 35-foot height maximum. It's only at 27.5 feet. Complies with the yard requirements, the setback requirements in the CBD zone district, except for the fact that the clock tower and the west edge of the building do fall in the setbacks. Staff contends that these are existing and have existed for quite some time, predates regulations, and therefore considers these setback encroachments to be legal, non-conforming, and are allowed to continue to exist in their existing footprint. And again, the applicant is not proposing to change the footprint in any way, so staff does not have any concerns with these encroachments. Frontage requirements have been met, parking requirements have been met, fencing and shrubbery, none is required. Existing fencing is proposed to be upgraded. Signs, none are proposed at this time. Any signs that are proposed for the complex will have to go through review via our sign permit requirements and through the sign code itself. The applicant is proposing a sidewalk along the perimeter of Henrietta and then swinging up along the perimeter of Laurel rather than fees in lieu, and the sidewalk as proposed will be reviewed once we get the construction plans, and it will comply with the requirements that we have for sidewalks. And again, landscaping, the applicant does propose minor landscaping, some changes. They've taken out some of the shrubs and some of the retaining walls that were there in the past, and they do propose new retaining walls and some additional landscaping within that landscaped area. So again, this site and this proposal meets all of the complies with all of the requirements of the Central Business Zone District. Staff also reviewed this with the conditional use permit requirements of the municipal code. There are 11 of these, and I'll just touch on them very briefly here. They are detailed within the staff report. There is a need for this conversion. This site has sat empty and vacant for over 10 years, and it has deteriorated badly, as the assessor notes in their record. The conversion from a motel to a residential use is an exciting prospect. Staff is excited at this prospect. It is beneficial, no impact to the public health and welfare, this proposed land use. Property values are estimated to increase because of this change and just because of the renovation that is proposed to occur on this property. There was a letter submitted from RE/MAX, from Mrs. Tanis, supporting that, providing evidence that she believes that the property values will in fact increase. Staff believes that the application as proposed and the renovation will harmonize with the area, with the neighborhood, with the surrounding buildings and the surrounding uses. That the proposal does comply with the city plans, goals, policies, and objectives, that it complies with all applicable city regulations, that the traffic will be reduced from a motel use by about 25 average daily trips when the residential use is introduced. Drainage, we are expecting a drainage plan to be submitted with the building construction plans. One hasn't been submitted to date, but the applicant is aware that a drainage plan is required and that they will have to maintain all drainage on site. Water, sewer, wastewater have all been looked at. Each of the units will have their own meter, and we are looking at the tap fees that will be required of the applicant. Hazards have been looked at. There were some, there was asbestos and other hazardous materials within the building that are being addressed by the applicant as part of the construction. And staff did look at the architectural design and feels that it complies with all of the city's design standards. This is also an application for a site plan review, a concurrent application, and there are A through G standards for a site plan review. Many of them are similar to what we just read through for the conditional use permit requirements. Staff again finds that it complies with the city plans, goals, policies, and objectives, that it complies with the applicable city regulations such as the grading, erosion, design, parking, tree retention, lighting, layout, and architectural design standards that exist, that there is no additional traffic impact that is notable, that topography, soils, drainage, environmental hazards, and features have all been looked at, and there are no concerns. Water, sewer, wastewater, air quality, no impacts. Fire and safety hazards have all been reviewed. Again, no impacts, no concerns, and that this is a compatible use as proposed for this site and for this neighborhood. Therefore, staff does make a recommendation of approval of Ordinance 1280 for conditional use permit 16-002 and site plan review number 16004 for a land use change from Section 18.09.090L2, which is lodges and inns, 20 rooms or less. A change in use to Section 18.09.090N4, which is residential dwelling units 5 or more attached. For the ultimate purpose of a 9-unit residential condominium complex on lots 7 through 9 of Block 10, Stepha's subdivision of addition number 1, subject to the conditions specified in Ordinance 1280. And I'd just like to spend a moment and go through those conditions in 1280 so it's on the record. So the conditions for this change in use and approval of the CUP and site plan review is one, that signage, if any, shall be reviewed and approved under a separate sign permit application. That prior to issuance of a zoning development permit for the construction, that the applicant shall provide the following for approval by the city: the final CUP and site plan review site plan, revised to conform with the red line prints returned to the applicant. And these revisions must include: 1, if the Henrietta access is to be retained, modification of the driveway so it intersects at 90 degrees with the avenue, necessary pavement repair, and installation of a concrete crosspan. And to date, at this time, as far as I know, the Henrietta access is not being proposed to be retained, so this condition would become moot. But the applicant still has the discretion to change his mind or her mind. Subcondition number 2, modification of the existing landscaping and pervious areas to mitigate stormwater runoff. And again, we would get those types of details with the drainage plan that they intend to submit with their construction plans. 3, installation of a sidewalk as appropriate or fees in lieu. The applicant has decided to go with the construction of the sidewalk rather than fees in lieu, and staff will review the proposed design of that sidewalk with the construction plans. And finally, number 4, evaluation of the use and capacity to serve the new residential use, including the likelihood of additional tap fees and separate water and sewer service to each unit. And again, that will be looked at in great detail with the construction plans and the zoning development permit that we are expecting any day now. Condition 2B, we do expect final landscape, drainage, grading, and erosion control plans with the construction plans. 2C, we do expect final architectural elements to be submitted with all materials and colors specified to the extent that the applicant can give us those samples. And D, payment of various impact fees as applicable, i.e. tap fee, stormwater fee, transportation capital fee, park fee, sidewalk in lieu fee as applicable, etc., at the time of the zoning development permit. Mayor Levy, that concludes my presentation. This approval recommendation is based on findings contained in the staff report and as presented in public hearings, both at the Planning Commission and here tonight. The applicant is here, Habitat from Humanity, Jamie Caperton, and the architect Ken Hartsfield is here as well, and I'm sure they would love to present their project to you. Maybe we could hold questions till after they present. And
that sounds good if it's okay with council.
I just had one quick question. You mentioned it earlier, and I think for the public it'd be important. It seems, we're going for a conditional use permit now, but work's already been done, as you pointed out. And what was the permit that they got ahead of time?
It was a special event temporary use permit for the demo. So it was just to remove some of the items on the site to the extent that they could prepare for the builder's blitz. And it was a one-day event, May 11th, 4 hours, approximately from 12 to, from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock, 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, something like that. And 250 plus volunteers came in, and it was fun.
Okay.
But
So
at that point, that event was permissible under the current zone?
Yes, under the temporary use permit that was approved and active.
Thank you. Any other? Go ahead, John.
Is there a requirement that any of the units need to be ADA compliant?
I think the applicant is proposing that the ground floor level units will be ADA accessible, and I'll let the architect talk a little bit about some of the requirements for that.
All right.
And I believe the lower unit will also be ADA accessible. There's one unit below.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Laura. If that's the case, then Jamie and Ken, come on up. Before you start, if you just give us your name and address, we'd appreciate it.
Well, good evening. Ken Hartsfield, 1151 Sundance Circle, board president for Habitat and architect. This is.
I'm Jamie Caperton, executive director for Habitat for Humanity, 1143 Windflower Lane, Woodland Park, Colorado.
Well, good evening. A little bit of history on the project. I think actually the city approached us at one point, offering it as a potential project, something we could do in the city. So we appreciate their support from staff in getting to the point where we are so far. We were looking for grants and came across a grant, which is the Builders Blitz, which has been talked about a little bit or mentioned. And that's a national event which will take place in June. And we have sponsors, international sponsors or national sponsors coming in, donating materials and labor to do a lot of the retrofit work on the building. And we became aware of this award of the grant early February. So it's been a very tight time frame to get everything in place. But with that in place, we've gone into a partnership with the owner of the property so that we can come in and develop and meet the needs of some of the people in town to provide reasonable housing that there's definitely a shortage of in town as far as price-wise. But with the grants that we were given for the Builders Blitz, we're going to have all the siding donated, all the windows donated. We have other donors providing us roofing installed. We have drywall donated. And so a lot of the expenses that we'd normally incur are being donated through these grant process through our association with Habitat International. So we're taking the existing building and basically a lot of one-bedroom, a couple two-bedroom units, and going to combine some of them in the middle of the building to create more reasonable three-bedroom condominiums and two-bedroom condominiums. As far as your ADA issue, yes, you're correct. We are complying with the ANSI code, and we'll be providing one fully accessible unit in the building, and that'll be on the main ground level. Jamie, you have something to add to the overall view?
Well, it's been a wild and crazy few weeks. As Ken said, we found out about this in February, and since then we have been soliciting donations and receiving donations from Habitat International. We have already received well over $300,000 in contributions of product, services, and lots of other things that are coming by the way. We met with a lot of home builders in this area through a meeting with Foxworth Galbraith locally, and many home builders and tradespeople have donated their time as well. One of the first parts of the Home Builders Blitz will be for them to come in, and a lot of electricians will come in on one day and do all the electrical work. So they'll be joining together in a way that's never been done in our community before. Usually one electrician will come in or one plumber will come in and do a project for us. And on this particular project, they're all joining forces to make the loft house happen, and that's all being donated to our project. So that's just making it really awesome for us. So all the framers will come in on a couple of days and make a difference in the project. All the electricians will come in and do it together. All the plumbers will come in on another couple of days and make that happen and really renovate this building into something spectacular. And that's what's making this project very unique, is the collaboration within our community. It's just going to be phenomenal. And then, as Ken was saying, all the siding has been donated by Plygem, and all of their contractors are going to come in and put that up for us. And so they're teaching us a whole new product. We've never used this product in our area before, but they're teaching us a new product, and they're doing that for free. And that's a word I love, free, donated. All of the windows are a brand new product we've never used here before, Simon Tech. And they're coming in and they're doing that for us, and they're doing that for free. I have trucks that are sitting down in Colorado Springs right now waiting to come up to Woodland Park. And they're like, when can I come? When can I come? And I'm like, just give me a minute. I have to go to the council tonight and get permission for you to be here. And so it's really awesome to know that well over $300,000 is already done. Everything from, we've been having fun over at the Woodland Park Community Church because lights have shown up, doorknobs have shown up, all kinds of little tiny things that are going to make a difference in this building, but that are free, that are coming to make a difference in this community because people believe in us. When the Home Depot folks were here taking out things, getting the property ready, one of my favorite ones was the guy that was one of the big suppliers of the heating. He walked in and went, "What are those things on the floor there?" And I said, "Oh, well, those are the metal things that we're going to put back on those heating units and make them work." And he goes, "Oh, no, that ain't happening." And I said, "Well, why isn't that not happening? They're still salvageable. We can make them work." And he goes, "Oh, no. I supply the heating units that are on that floor there to Home Depot, and those aren't going to happen in this unit here. So we're getting new ones shipped here to you." And so it was really awesome. I was like, yes, I love it when they see a need and they send them to us. So it was really great to have 250 executives of Home Depot telling us what we needed to make this building even better than what we had already planned. So it was awesome, and we thank you for letting us do that because it really got them excited about what they could do in Woodland Park. And by the way, we were just telling David that they want to come back and they want to bring 600 volunteers back, so come up with a really good project for them for next year. They like to play golf at the Broadmoor and come to Woodland Park to work. They did great things at the VFW and with us, but they really want to come back and do more stuff. But we've got really great plans for it, and we hope that what you see you like. We've still, and $300,000 is just the beginning. We've got more coming that want to give to us. So with your permission tonight, we'd really like to take those donations and then be able to do even more. We've got great plans of what we want to continue to do with Habitat here in Woodland Park and Teller County. We've got some great families that are coming forward that would love that view and want to be a part of the Loft House condominiums, and I think we've got a good start. Any
Jamie,
questions?
Before council asks questions, give us a little sense of the market, the price of these, and who you think might be living there.
Absolutely. So far, it's families, families, families. We really thought we were going to see a diversity, but really what we're seeing is a lot of folks with young families that have applied. That's been the most of what we've seen. We have seen a teacher from Woodland Park High School, one of the para teachers there, have applied. We've had 2 veterans that have applied, but they have families as well. So I think we're going to see lots of kids running around up on that hill. So is that a good thing? Okay, good. But lots of families enjoying that up there. And Home Depot did donate a park play set for the area while they were here as well. So we've had over 20 applicants apply, and most of them are in the family range, younger families. But we have had a couple of seniors, a couple of veterans, and one single person that have applied. As far as the cost of the units, the single home, the single unit in the basement area will be right at $75,000, and we'll top out at the 3 bedrooms right around $115,000. And that means with the USDA funding realm that we're going to be using, that the top payment, and I'm really looking top payment with principal, interest, taxes, and everything, might push $600 a month on a payment.
For a 3-bedroom?
For a 3-bedroom.
Yeah. That's to own, not just rent.
Own. Right.
Are these applicants that you mentioned local applicants, or are they from all over?
They have to have worked or lived in Teller County.
For a year.
For a year.
And what are the other requirements for application?
Help me remember everything. Well, first of all, they have to have worked or lived in Teller County. They have to be within the 30 to 60% area median income for this area. They have to complete a home buyer's education course. They have to do 300 to 400 hours of sweat equity on the house. I do have to say that Home Depot met the 100-hour donation part of that for them, all 9 families, while they were here. They gave each family their 100 hours while they were here. So they have to be able to qualify for the loan, so their debt-to-income ratios have to match up. So we're working with families that we have to really get them in, look at their credit reports, get things cleaned up right away, because they only have this 3 months that we're working on things to get everything in line and going.
And you have 20 applicants at this point for 9 units. How do you decide?
Pretty much the clearinghouse right now is I'm looking at their credit reports, and I'm weeding out anybody that can't do the work on their credit and get things cleaned up. And if they're not willing to do the sweat equity and they're not willing to do the home buyer's education courses, they're out. Sorry, I'm mean.
Yeah.
We're a tough group.
Well, along that line of questioning, are these going to be ready to move, turnkey homes, or will the applicants have to actually help finish some part of them?
Well, we're planning on having them all finished and ready for them to move in September, but they have to do their sweat equity on the house to help get them ready.
Okay, once they're approved. Okay.
No, we're asking them to do it now while they're being approved.
Okay.
We're asking that's how they get on the good list.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah,
Prove it up.
Yeah, most of them will be working on the house they're going to buy.
I hope so.
Yeah. One kind of a numbers question. What are you using for area median income?
We use the 72.9 as the area median income, and then what we do is we rank them by the number of people that are in the family, and I can adjust that area median income because that's what Woodland Parks is.
Okay. Thank you. Great project.
Thank you.
It really is. Yeah.
We kind of like it.
Anybody else?
Oh, are you going to keep the tower?
The clock tower is staying, and on Friday it will chime. The original builder of the clock tower is electrifying the clock tower and going to make it work on its own, so it doesn't have to constantly be cranked.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. Any other questions from council before we ask for public opinion?
I have some for staff.
Go right ahead, Laura.
Great project. I just want to know some city details. First, I've got a few questions here. City utilities and public works impacts as far as cost to the city. I know you're not public works, but it's utilities and sidewalks, roads. Do we have anything like that the city's going to have to do?
It already has connection to water and sewer, and we're looking at the tap fees that the applicant will have to submit to get a metered unit and service to each unit. So the applicant will be responsible for that.
Right.
There shouldn't be a lot of extra cost to the city.
No turn lanes. Okay. Second question, I'm sure this has been studied, but changing the the zoning here, we're changing from potential lodging, never mind the fact that it's been a slum for 10 years, to the multiple use. So there's a potential lodging tax, impact property tax, those things. Did you guys put those numbers together on the city budget potential?
We did not. There will be a reduction. There will be no lodging tax anymore. There will be the property taxes based on the condominium units.
Even with the Habitat are the 501c? So they'll be single owners. So the property taxes will probably be more.
Anything else? Great, thanks, Laura. Anyone else? John?
Let's see, there is water and sewer there now, and it has been there for 15 units. So we have to determine the serviceability of water and sewer. Are you going to probably plug some lines and just abandon them there, or some other approach?
It's up to them how they decide to abandon or demo those lines. The only requirements the city has from a utility standpoint is that each unit has its own sewer service line and water service line.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Will there be a transportation capital fee for this project, or has that already been paid by a previous project?
Sally, I'll let
There,
you.
there will not, because they're reducing the number of trips, so that it's not an increase.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe I have a question for Jamie. Curious how Habitat for Humanity works. You mentioned that if someone purchases a condo and they don't meet their side of the bargain, they're kicked out. Who actually owns the condo?
Well, the way that it'll work is that as far as kicking them out of the program,
Right.
is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, how does that work?
We evaluate them to see if they will be eligible to receive a USDA loan.
Okay.
Okay? Because we have to get them through this process before they actually get to the loan process. And then we move them up to qualifying for a USDA loan through Habitat.
Okay.
Okay? And if they get through all of these prerequisites and get to that point, then they qualify. And USDA funds them, and they become a homeowner. At that point, I can't kick them out.
Oh, okay. That makes
Because they own the home. Now, one of the stipulations on the house is that they have two loans, one through USDA and a second through Habitat. And the second on from the Habitat side is the difference between we actually sell it at, because we sell it at a lower price, that $115. It'll be valued at something above that because of the difference in all the donated products and everything. And the difference between those two is what we have the second on the house. Okay? So let's say it's valued we sell it at $115 and it's valued, fair market value is $130. Okay? We'll have a second on the house for $15,000 to keep them from flipping the house immediately.
Okay, I did notice that in the planning notes.
Right.
What was they have to be in the house 5 years,
5 years
before they can turn around and
They
sell
can
it?
turn around and sell it. And we realize that these are smaller units. We consider these starter homes for folks.
Right.
And we want them to be able to develop equity and move on to other homes as their families grow and, their equity and everything is growing. And their credit lines are growing as well. And so 5 years down the line, that second will have disappeared, and they can sell the unit if they want to. They decide they want to stay, they're just growing more equity in the unit.
Well, thank you for giving the families an opportunity.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Would they be able to rent the facility before the 5 years or not?
No, they're not rentable. That's going to be part of the homeowners unit, the condo HOAs, is we want them to stay as homeowners.
So there is control of them not destroying the property, but maintaining the property to a certain standard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And those are written into the contracts, into the USDA contracts.
And I highly encourage that walkway right there instead of a driveway onto Henrietta.
This one, these are stairs up into
Yeah.
it.
That's
Yeah.
a great design right there, and focusing your traffic off to the side and then bringing it up.
Yeah. And one of the designs that we were just talking about was making this area right here into a playscape area so that the families can sit up there and enjoy the view and have that railed so that everybody, the families can sit. We had a great time building planter benches and seats and everything for them while the Home Depot folks were here. It's a great view from there.
And they've already donated the playground equipment.
And they have.
Yes.
So let's use it.
Anyone else? We're in public comment right now. Does anybody from the audience like to comment?
I would like to comment. I'm on the board of Habitat.
Excuse me. Could you state your name and address?
Yes. Kay Sanford, 406 Coraline Street, Woodland Park.
Thank you.
So I just want to mention, besides getting these national donations coming into our area, we're actually getting national attention. And I don't know if you've seen many of the media reports, but it's all been very positive. And I just came back from a Habitat for Humanity conference where there were 8 states involved, and everybody has eyes on Woodland Park. And it was very exciting to see. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
And I'll reiterate that I just got the call today from Plyjam, their national media people, and Alan Jackson's publicist, and they wanted to know who our media people were here so that they could coordinate that. And I'm like, sure, we'll be glad to give you those names. So we just sent up our entire media list to them so that they could start publicizing it nationally, what we're doing here. So,
Thanks very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from council? If not, we'll call for a motion to approve ordinance number 1280.
So moved.
Second.
Sounds good, Suzanne.
Thank you. Sonier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie.
Jamie and your whole board, I think I speak for the entire community when I say, you know, just a great, great job thinking outside the box. A piece of property that desperately needed help, and in addition, you're able to help 9 families for our community. So just couldn't be better.
we're so excited.
Thank you so much.
For being a part of it. We appreciate it.
Amazing. I got to go to that when all these executives were coming off the bus. And I thought the volunteers, I didn't think Jamie alluded to it, but these were people that own Home Depots and owned, you know, supply companies from all over the country, and spending their time here in Woodland Park to help Habitat. It was pretty special, pretty special. Thanks again. Okay, we will move on. Sally, and item number 10B, approving ordinance number 1281.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Ordinance 1281 is to amend our zoning regulations to allow for 1 to 2 residential units in certain commercial zones. And the proposal is that those commercial zones would be neighborhood commercial, community commercial, or central business district, rather than processing a conditional use permit, which is what you saw at your last council meeting with the small cabin on 101 South Boundary Street. We have also added a notification process to this section, which is why it is called permitted conditionally, because the notification process allows for the surrounding property owners or the general public to be able to have some input, and if they feel that their issues have not been resolved, they can request a hearing or an appeal to the City Council. So with that, I'll start with the zoning map and just identify the 3 zones that this administrative review for 1 to 2 residential units would occur in the Central Business District, which is the light blue area, the Neighborhood Commercial District, which is the light pink area on our zoning map, and then Community Commercial, which is the hot pink area. We did not include the Service Commercial, which is basically for large shopping centers or more intense commercial use, or the Heavy Service Commercial Light Industrial, because we just don't feel that residential and light industrial mix very well. So there is a table of uses in your staff report and the ordinance that shows, this is section N, which includes all the residential dwellings. And you did hear that tonight your 5 or more units for the motel fits in one of these rows for the motel, for the condominiums. So there are a number of different rows here. We're proposing to add row 7 that would allow for up to 2 dwelling units within the 3 commercial zones. And then you'll see, I wanted to explain PUD, planned unit developments. All the uses are permitted conditionally, but they are requested at the time that that final plan comes through the council for approval. And then if they want to change their uses, they have to amend the PUD and allow for those residential uses as permitted conditionally. So we would remove the conditional use for 2-family and remove the conditional use for the single family in just those 3 commercial zones. The notice process, once the zoning development permit is submitted to the staff, then within 5 days we would send out adjoining property letters that would be sent to everyone who has property within 150 feet of the subject property. We'd publish or post a notice sign on the property. There would be a 2-week comment period and resolution period. And again, if that did not satisfy folks that may be aggrieved by this proposal, then they can appeal to the City Council for a public hearing. So it's a very transparent, open process for folks. The benefits to this amendment is that it streamlines this process from 90 days to 30 days. It's significantly less costly. Right now, a conditional use permit is almost $500. A zoning development permit is just a little bit over $100 plus the public notice costs. It's a simpler application. We do not look at the 11 criteria or have to have a traffic analysis or a drainage analysis, so it's a simpler process. It encourages mixed use in buildings or in neighborhoods. It allows for folks to walk, if they are in that core part of town, to the civic centers, shops, and libraries. It provides for greater housing options, more affordable options. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan that encourages infill or perhaps live-work units, and a streamlined process. And it's really more of the historical development patterns that our community has seen in the early days. Potential disadvantages is that first, we can't add conditions to this However, we don't see that with a residence that it warrants conditions, additional conditions, because there are so few impacts with a single-family home or a duplex in a neighborhood. There is less property tax that is collected when you change the use from commercial to residential. But you just saw a commercial use that is changing to residential, and the commercial property tax, because it's been vacant and it's gotten into poor condition, those taxes go down. So it's something, though, to consider. I do want to walk you through a few examples that we've seen over the years. This is the State Farm building on the highway. They were one of the first that had a true mixed-use building. It's now, though, not being used as a residence because the highest and best use of this commercial property is commercial use. So it transitioned back to office, so it's all an office. But about 5 years ago, the new owners had asked for a conditional use permit to have an apartment in this building. There are a couple of residents or a couple of buildings on Center Street, just north of the Cowhand, and we did process a conditional use permit for this structure after there was a fire, and it served as a residence right in the core part of town and has functioned very well. I'm aware that the owner of this little cottage is also wanting to lease it as a residence, but is holding off the conditional use process in order to follow the streamlined process should this be approved this evening. In the vicinity of the Loft House, we have neighborhood commercially zoned property. There was a home built a few years ago that went through the conditional use. It was an infill on Henrietta. There's now a vacant parcel of land just north of there, and the lady who has purchased this is ready to build a new home and would like to go through a more streamlined process of getting the residential use for that tract of land. Here's the example of Carl Anderson from our last council meeting on Boundary Street, where the existing cabin had served as an office for a number of years and is now going to be his son's residence. And just south of the Anderson property, recently Court Wall had come forward with a conditional use for these two structures just south of the cabin, and now he has them leased for residential use in this mixed neighborhood.
And right across the street there's a resident right there.
That's true, yes. Most of these neighborhoods in the older part of Woodland Park have a real mix. Many of them have functioned as residences for many years and are grandfathered for those uses. Lastly, I wanted to show you on West Street. This is a property owner that would like to convert this property. They just did complete a small remodel to rehab the interior, and so they are waiting to see if there is a more streamlined process for their consideration of residential use in this cabin that was originally a residence. So with that, the staff and the Planning Commission, who looked at this closely in April, recommend approval to allow up to 2 dwelling units within the same structure as a permitted use in the neighborhood commercial, community commercial, and central business districts, subject to a notification and appeal process. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Sally. Go ahead.
On the CUP criteria, was there any consideration of retaining the criteria for traffic, or not traffic, but for parking?
Parking will be looked at. That's a standard that's in our zoning code. So whenever we do review a residence, we always look at parking. So parking, landscaping, those are standard things that will get reviewed through the process.
And this is really possibly a question for Aaron, and I should have emailed it to you earlier. Is there any contradiction to the charter in terms of the notification process with this change?
Other questions, council?
I see there's no, everything on the left side of the chart is blank down here on number 7. Is there any intention to go further into single-family residential, expanding to 2 dwelling units?
Do you mean in this part of the chart?
I'm not sure if it's that part of the chart or number 1. I don't.
Well, that part of the chart is covered up above, where a single-family home is a use by right for suburban residential, urban residential, multifamily, all the residential zones. Those are uses by right. So this is only adding where you have residential in the commercial areas.
Paul?
What about sidewalks? Do they all have sidewalks, or in the infills, do they need sidewalks?
Currently, our zoning regulations call for sidewalks if in the commercial area it's a new development, or if there's an improvement to that building that is 25% or greater than the building and there is no existing sidewalks. So the sidewalks are triggered, curb and gutter and sidewalks, for any new commercial or a remodel that is 25% or more. Now we shift to residential. In the residential zones, the multifamily new requires sidewalks. If it's a single-family development, we do not require sidewalks. It is up to the developer. If they choose to put in sidewalks, then they may, but we have not required sidewalks in our community in single-family.
And just to remind council, this is only for 2 dwellings. 1 or 2, not more than 2, so.
Correct.
So different.
Okay, just to make clarity there.
Anyone else in council, please remember to speak into your microphone. Anybody else? We are in public comment, and I do have one person signed up. Mr. Jaroslaw, would you like to come forward?
I'm Steve Jaroslaw. I live at 610 Sun Valley Drive here in Woodland Park. My main purpose for speaking was to urge the council to support the revised ordinance 1281. But before I do, if I might diverge for 60 seconds, I did want to thank the council for your unanimous vote on approving the full-up funding for the Woodland Aquatic Project. It's a huge historic development for Woodland Park. I'd also like to thank David Buddery in particular for his creative research into supplemental funds that can help develop a project that will be in accordance with what the citizens of Woodland Park said they wanted to see in this project. So thank all of you, and David, you in particular, for those efforts. Okay, moving on to Ordinance 1281. I did want to provide the council with a small amount of background on it because this is not a new issue. It's actually an old issue. Almost exactly 2 years ago, the proposed ordinance was brought forth by Sally, and since I had a parochial interest in it because it could affect the value of my property, my residence, I spoke before the then mayor and council, which consisted of mostly the same folks, and I objected to it because I felt that it lacked robustness in terms of notification to affected homeowners, and I don't recall there was much of an appellate right available to affected homeowners. And Noel Sawyer also objected to it. And the vote at that council meeting, as I recall, was, I think, 4-2 in favor of tabling it for the moment, which actually mirrored in part the prior Planning Commission's meeting on it, because at that meeting it was very contentious, and the vote to go forward with the proposed ordinance was by a very close vote of 4-3. So some of those same issues carried forth to the council meeting. And Sally, in very smart executive fashion, said to Noel and I, well, since you guys didn't like it, why don't you help me rewrite it and make it conform to what you feel would be a more appropriate ordinance. So about 5-6 months ago, I think last December, Noel and I sat down with Sally, went over the wording, and I think we ended up providing to our satisfaction, although I'll let Noel speak for himself, a much more robust notification requirement and a nice, healthy appellate process as well. So I personally am satisfied with the ordinance as written. I think it has all the advantages that Sally very well briefed, and yet it still provides protections for affected landowners in that immediate area. So I would urge the council to support the ordinance as revised.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment? Noel, you want to tag on to that?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
If we have no other questions or comment, we'll call for a motion to approve ordinance number 1281.
So moved.
Second.
There we go. Suzanne?
Thank you. Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Svenier?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne. And Sally, you have the podium.
Thank you, and I would like to mention thanks Steve and Councilman Sawyer for their help with recrafting that ordinance. It was a good exercise, so we'll be excited to implement it. I'll have some phone calls to make tomorrow to a few folks who are interested in this outcome, so thank you for that. Moving on, I would like to do, this is a request, get the full screen here, 10C, a request by Holly Morell. Unfortunately, Holly could not be here this evening, but this is an event, this will be their third year doing the Movies Above the Clouds special event. They do show the movies beyond 9 p.m. in order to have adequate darkness for these movies, and they are held at the Cultural Center 3 different Saturday evenings, June 10th, July 8th, and August 12th. And so you're familiar with the location with which their very successful Saturday night movies have been shown at the Cultural Center, and they do a great job. We have reviewed their request. There have been no concerns with from the staff, Public Works, Field Inspector, PD, and we have posted the property as well as published. So this is a program that we recommend approval. There are 5 conditions that deal with an end time at 10:30. Cleanup must be completed in the last half hour to 11 p.m. Contacting the Public Works Department for their support. Any signage must meet our sign code. Litter must be all cleaned up in the area, and the applicant is subject to all representations in the temporary use permit application. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Council? Go ahead, Noel.
More of a statement. Last year was very successful. One thing that I didn't realize is that the Booster Club sells popcorn and beverages to make money for the sports teams. Another thought is maybe we can streamline this process. If an event goes for more than 3 years very successfully, why do they have to come to us?
I would love to do that.
I'm looking at I'm looking at one more that's been successful, and Eric needs to go 2 more years, and he can be successful, and then, I don't know, maybe that's an option we can do here soon.
Well,
Or is that something that Aaron can answer?
Longer permit?
Yeah. I think the way to approach that would be to allow for permits that go more than 1 year. And so you can approve it, and then for 3 years, and it's approved for 3 years, and they come back the 4th year.
Let's make it so. Well, we'll talk
We'll do that
offline, I
another
guess.
time.
On that, yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah,
for Sally?
I have one to staff. And I'm going to do this 3 times, but police costs, security costs, are there going to be additional off-budget?
No, the regular officers that are on duty do regular patrols through the area, and our call service has been little to no impact.
Val, if you've been to one of those events, it's a very good event. Nobody's out of hand there. And I'm pretty sure that the crowd would take care of it.
Anybody else? Public comment?
Uh-oh.
That doesn't look good.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Renee Bunting, 57 Stacy Lane. Robin Paisley asked me to speak with you tonight about the event. Starting at 7-ish, they'll have a vendor from Carmen's Tapas Grill will be there to serve food. And then about 8:25-ish is when the movie starts. And then it runs till about 10:30. It should be done by then. Last year they had over 400 people attend each movie night. So that was awesome. And then, of course, they have free popcorn and soda during the movies. So she's really excited. She's sorry she couldn't be here, but she had an accident, unlike myself. So anyway, she just wanted me to let you know that it really has been successful, and they've had no incidents. So she's hoping that, they can extend that time.
Renee, what are the movies?
They're not releasing that at this time.
But
It'll be a surprise.
They're not R.
No. Family movies.
Thanks, Renee.
You bet.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Good question.
Okay, if not, then call for a motion to consider this special
I
event.
move approval of the
TUP.
special event permit as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Schaefer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Sonier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne. Sally, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Item 10B is a request from Deborah Mariska, and she is doing Bike the Night, special event. This also takes place after 9 p.m. and begins and ends at the Cultural Center. This will take place on July 30th in the evening. Oops. And you're familiar with the location, same as the last. This is the bike route that Deborah has submitted, slightly changed this year from last year. Deborah is here so she can talk about the event. You will note that there is a rest area that's going to be set up by Crestwood Park, so they'll have a fun event traveling these local streets and throughout the town. And we have done the review. Staff and Public Works, PD, Fire have no concerns. All the appropriate notices have been posted or sent and published. And with that, there are a few more recommendations for this one. The designated location is shown by the route map. We are requesting proper safety equipment that includes helmets and bike lights, and the applicant can talk about her coordination with State Patrol as well as our local police department. Emergency services will be notified, so they're on alert. Cleanup is required. If we receive any complaints, then the applicant will help assist us with those. Noise, signage, rest stops, and representations are all part of the conditions. We recommend approval for this event. This is Deborah's third year also.
Did you paste and copy that from the movie about the clouds?
Ollie Morel, yes, I did. Thanks.
And Deborah, you're certainly welcome to come forward if you'd like to promote a little bit. We've had great success in your event and look forward to it again.
Thank you, Mayor Levy and City Council. Deborah Maresca, 421 Old Kathleen Trail, Guffey, Colorado, 80820. So yes, Colorado Springs does 1,500 cyclists at this event. I've invested $1,000 in advertising and promotional material to boost up our participation. So our first year was with the Pro Challenge. It was kind of our dry run. Second year, we did not invest in advertising, and that cost us. So this year, it's all out there, and we'll go for broke. And if this is the last, then this is the last. But I definitely wanted to go out with both guns blazing, and I think it'll be a hoot. It's again, our third year, and investing in the Starlight Spectacular from Colorado Springs. Again, if I can just get 10%, that's 150 participants, so just from the Springs. Any questions?
No?
I like the route change. Seems a lot safer from last year. Because I think last year, weren't you crossing 24?
Yes. So I tried to keep it as flat as possible, as long as possible, without making it boring. We did not use Centennial Trail for safety reasons, and I just wanted to keep it in the back community side roads where there's less traffic. So yeah, it's a lot of comments last year were it's dark up here. It's like,
yes,
yeah. So the participants we've had in the past really enjoy coming up. We're going to invest $500 in prize money for costume. It'll be a family outing, so I think it should be good.
If you need hot dogs again, let me know.
No, we're going to start at the Cultural Center, and then we're going to end at Ute Pass Brewery.
Oh, good for you.
And so Ute Pass Brewery will work on feeding everyone, and so it's all good.
Well, I have to say, last night for the Rite of Silence, I was surprised at how many folks came up from Colorado Springs. So again, this is an effort to bring people up to God's country, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. And this is another event. So Experience Ride is at 200, and all out-of-staters coming in, plus all over the area. The hotels are all sold out, I hear. But anyway, so yeah, just doing my thing.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Deb or for Sally?
I have noted that there's a coordination with the State Patrol and Police Department. Any impacts on the Police Department, or what are those?
I've talked to
situation?
Captain Lupton, and he's fine with signing it off to Woodland Park. As the Rite of Silence last night, the Woodland Park police were awesome. It really made it safe, and it was good. So Captain Lupton has no concerns. It'll leave the Cultural Center, and then we'll turn right on Maple, and then from there it'll just be side streets, no highway at all.
Do you have people monitoring the route and saying, go this way, go that way, things like that?
No, we'll have signs that have reflective tape. We'll have ride leaders, and then we'll have club members dispersed throughout, and then we will have a sweep vehicle. just in case Johnny gets tired.
And Chief, is there any more impact? No.
Anybody else? Deb, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Okay, we're still in public comment. If anybody would like to speak on this matter. If not, we will call for a motion to consider this temporary use permit for the Mountaintop Cycling Club.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Carr?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Sonier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, Sally, one last time.
Another exciting event coming to Woodland Park in June. This will be the Enduro, and Eric Nykamp is here this evening to consider. This is a camping permit, even though their event on the weekend does not extend beyond 9 o'clock. Eric is having a few folks camp at the site beginning Friday morning on June 24th to 3 p.m. on Sunday, June 26th. And this will take place at the UPass Saddle Club Outdoor Arena down on Highway 24. Oops. So the general location down on the highway, north of Walmart, but south of Safeway. And the site plan that was submitted, their Super Enduro takes place in this tracks area, and then there is a pit area that the camping will take place. There's a maximum of 25 self-contained campers that will be in this far southern location. All the parking, spectator parking, will take place at the north end. This application for their temporary use has been reviewed by our staff. Public Works, Field Inspector, PD has no issues. Publication is not required other than for camping on the council agenda, and there are several conditions associated with this camping permit to be within a certain time period within the designated location. The number of units is limited to 25, and these will only be the event volunteers and the riders. The services, camping units shall not connect to water and sewer. They are to be self-contained. The cleanup is all required. If there are any complaints, then the applicant would work with us to resolve those issues. We're asking that lights be turned out by 9 o'clock, and noise be considerate to the neighborhood, or lack of noise, and that the representation in the application is made will be set. So with that, we recommend approval, and Eric is here to talk about his event, and particularly you're voting on the allowance for camping.
Eric Nykamp, 622 Columbine Road, Woodland Park. Thanks for having me. Just about the camping, last year we did the same thing, nothing different from last year. I did not hear or see any complaints from the city or anybody else. I don't know exact the numbers, but we were below the 25 last year. I think I've had about 10 campers that came. It's mainly for the riders that come from out of state, have their motorcycle and their RV coming. They usually come a little bit earlier. They come on Friday. You know, I wrote down 10 o'clock, but I think most of the rides will come around 4 or 5 o'clock on Friday because the event starts fairly early at 9 o'clock on Saturday. So that makes it a lot easier for them to come with their RV self-contained. And then there might be some riders that want to stay after the event, so that's why I went also on Saturday night, so they can stay and then leave on Sunday morning. The intention also for the Saturday night camping was that we had another school. One of the riders would do a school on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, so there would be a few riders coming and staying from the race on Saturday and then do the school on Sunday. That school is not going to happen. So it's just for a couple stragglers that want to stay a little bit later. We have a party tent with a band playing after the event, starting at 3 o'clock. So we have Beer Works supplying some alcohol on Saturday. So if some of the riders want to stay a little longer and don't want to go home on Saturday, will be great. There might be a couple people that are part of our club that want to camp out more as a convenience. Most of our crew will be from Woodland Park, so I don't anticipate a huge amount of people using that camping for the workers. We're trying to get the community as much as possible involved with the Booster Club doing some food stuff, Lions Club involved with fundraising. The wrestlers will do the parking. They get some money out of it. And I think there was one more. And the hockey club will benefit from the event as well. So we're trying to get as many people and many clubs involved to benefit from the event. Okay, so any questions about the camping?
I'll just make a statement just because I'm fairly close proximity being across the street. Last year I didn't even know that anybody was there. Not only camping, but during the actual race, it's so far south there that I could barely see it from the Swiss Chalet. So
yeah.
Great job. I know there was a lot of people there, but it was a great event, and thanks for helping the different athletic organizations. Anybody else?
Are any of the local ATV or motorcycle shops in town involved with this? Just curious.
Yes. Last year and this year, Catamount Power Sport was a sponsor, and Big D as well. So Big D is not selling any motorcycles anymore, just the UTV and ATVs, but they're still on board for sponsorship. We tried to get Polaris involved too, but last year's budget was already forgiven and I could not commit any, but you were trying to get those involved as much as possible.
Anybody else?
Just for Polaris, he's really involved in Lions Club, so a lot of his effort goes into the Lion Club. So that's probably why he doesn't have the funds to go to yours.
Okay.
I have my usual question for the chief. Extra police or security needed for this event? No. No impact on your budget? Thank you.
Just ambulance service when they crack up. I think it's great that you're bringing in this event, and I think this is your second year?
Second year, yes.
Very good.
Thank you.
Good.
Any national coverage this year again?
We are part of the Pikes Peak Hill Climb Speed Week, so we're getting a lot of attention to that. They are trying to do activity before and after, mainly before the hill climb. Last year we were the week before the hill climb. Now we're actually the day before. So we should get more spectators that are here because of the hill climb coming to our event. Usually the Saturday is the rest day. They got Fan Fest on Friday. We will be at Fan Fest trying to sell tickets and promoting the event so people can go from the Fan Fest directly to Woodland Park. So that works a little bit better. Last year we were a week before. We have at least 2 or 3 national known riders coming. One guy from Florissant is a good rider. We'll hope for more, but we're not expecting that many riders. We had 60 last year. If we can go to 80, it will be fine. We don't want any more than that because then it means more races, more trophies, and so we want the good riders to be on the track more than the amateur. So it's not a participation type of thing. We just want to put a good show for the public. Heard a lot of good comments from people last year. Wow, Woodland Park, who could imagine that this could be here? So a lot of people are involved, and so hopefully it will be a good event again this year.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much. Council, any more questions? Anybody in the audience like to comment? Okay, if not, then we'll call for a motion.
I'd move approval of the camping permit as requested.
Second.
Great, thank you. Suzanne?
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes?
Matthews?
Yes.
Soinier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, we have no new business tonight and no public comment. So we'll move on to reports, and I've got a couple. I'll start with you, Mr. Wiley. Presenting our student art. He's learned well, I see. Isabella Symes from the Woodland Park Middle School in the 8th grade has supplied this for us, and as I always say, we have a number of these at the administration building at the high school, and they're all available if you'd like to hang them in your business. So thanks to Isabella, and thanks to our schools. While I'm on schools, I was fortunate last night to attend the awards ceremony at the Dixon Performing Arts Center, and probably 50 to 60 kids receiving awards. And this number stands out. Over $2 million in scholarship offers to our kids at Woodland Park High School. And so, you know, they're doing great things over there. We have a great student population, and from West Point to all corners of the United States, our kids are going to attend school, and $2 million in scholarships is something pretty special, I think. So congratulations to all those that receive scholarships, and job well done. A couple of events in addition to the ones we just approved. Saturday, May 21st, the 14th annual citywide cleanup. That's this Saturday. Meet at Midland Pavilion next to the Cultural Center, and there's a free lunch at noon, and we had a big turnout, did we not, last few years, David?
It keeps increasing every year. I don't know what the numbers were last year.
Over 100. Yeah.
So it's a fun event. Weather's supposed to be nice this weekend. Thursday, May 26th, the Woodland Aquatic Center groundbreaking. So I know a lot of us have been looking forward to that for a long time. So 12:30 at the site, at the school, we'll have that groundbreaking. It'll be an exciting time for all of us. And then Thursday, June 2nd, Chamber Lunch and Learn, Windows 10 for normal people.
As opposed to dummies.
Yeah. Call Deb or call the Chamber office at 687-9885 for information and reservation. And then one more I received in the mail today, which is exciting, from El Pomar Foundation, a check for $50,000 for the aquatic project. And in my discussions with them, there are different pockets of money that El Pomar has. And in my discussion with the executive director, I think we have a legitimate chance of getting that $50,000 matched with another pocket of money from El Pomar. So either way, we're very, very grateful, and it helps reduce that delta, if you will, that we talked about earlier. So very excited about that. Okay, council reports, and Carol, you get to go first. You have none.
Okay, I sent a memo out a little while ago, and it's been recommended that I read it into the record. I sent out an email to Jessica. I had a suggestion, and so I'm going to read it into the record and pass it on to Suzanne so you can put it in the minutes or whatever. Like I said, it's from Val Carr, me, to Jessica. The text is, I met with Wally to review the monthly expenditures for my own education on the budget. I noted we pay $40.01 per month for each city-furnished iPad to Verizon. Wally believes this may be for 3G internet access on the iPad. I suspect none of us, except maybe David Buttery, actually need this capability I do everything through free web hotspots everywhere in the world, including Woodland Park, or my own home router. Most of us probably do internet access via our smart cell phones, everyone but me probably, and our home computers and tablets, which is how I do it. This seems an expense that could be eliminated for most, if not all of us, who have these iPad. Wally believes it may be turned off as it is a monthly arrangement and not a yearly contract commitment per iPad. I would like mine turned off to save this monthly charge against the city budget that is used. If it is something that is not able to be turned off, then I would opt to return my iPad, as it is severely limited in my capability to my Android tablet I already own and use for multi-window operation. I struggled with this limitation Apple has placed on its operating system for the iPad at the last council meeting and confirmed it is intentional by Apple with investigations I did since last council meeting, which sidebar Jessica recommend. Back to the text. I welcome all city-furnished iPad console who do not use this feature to sufficient to justify a $480 a year expense to also join me in getting it turned off or returned. I realize it is noise level in the budget, but every dollar we can save may be better allocated to more important needs of the city. My tablet, for instance, cost me $400 plus in the first place and has more capability, albeit less remaining storage. FYI, please advise. Jessica, thank you. Val Carr. I forgot to mention who I copied the council, David, Wally, a whole bunch of people. I just kind of did an email blast, which I may not do in the future. But anyway, here we go. That's all I have.
And for the record, I turned mine in after 3 weeks. I've never used it.
Okay, Ken?
Just to follow up with what you said on the cleanup this Saturday at the Cultural Center from 9 to 1. We have a great group of volunteers. When you show up, they can decide, or you can decide with them what area you want to work on. They have maps set up. They can dictate exactly what areas need help and which ones have plenty of help. And then there's a great cookout at noon. It's free. So please show up. It's going to be a beautiful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Paul?
I joined Val on the computer. I really am not computer literate. And I want to thank you guys for the professional way you put it together, Sally, and you present it. I deeply appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No?
I am tech savvy. I do like my iPad. That's all I have to say.
John?
I want to announce another groundbreaking. So in the pages on your desk somewhere, you will see an announcement with a rendering of our project at the bottom of the page. So Brian and I are happy to announce that America West Housing Solutions is going to break ground on Tuesday, the 31st of May at 3 p.m. with a reception immediately following the groundbreaking at the Shining Mountain Golf Club. So you are notified, and we hope to see many of you there. Again, May 31st, 3 p.m., a Tuesday. Thank you.
And another great project for our community. Thank you, John. Okay, we'll move on to City Attorney report.
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Nothing. Okay, Mr. Buttery?
Brian, your report, please.
Everybody still awake? Good evening, Mayor and Council. A couple highlights. In an ongoing discussion with the DDA, I'm working with the city manager on the DDA city debt. The council will recall $1,184,000 is at stake as of the end of June. So I'm happy to announce that that $36,000 payment is being paid and will be paid by that date, thanks to our finance director and city manager. So we're coming clean on that part of the deal. What we're hoping to do, there are really two tracks we're following. I think many of you have seen some of my revenue analysis with the DDA, the multicolored pro forma, which showed a payout over about a 12-year period of the amount of the $1,184,000. There's been a suggestion that we look at possibly doing that as a bond in one bulk payment. So we're looking at the metrics of that. We'll have continued discussions. We have a special meeting next Tuesday to discuss that, and then hopefully have a recommendation to bring via the city manager back to council, and then we'll work through what that looks like in the coming month or so. So we'll get some resolution and conclusion, and again be before you with a final recommendation. Main Street, always an active group, and one thing I wanted to say anecdotally, particularly to new council members, if you've never had the opportunity to go to a Main Street meeting, I would recommend going and being a guest. It's an excellent group, headed up by Darlene Jensen, our Main Street coordinator. We have a couple of board members in the audience, both Deb and Renee. Steve Jerslow was here earlier. This is a very passionate group, very active. There's several projects underway. People always say, well, what is Main Street up to? A lot of visioning, design process for downtown. It was intended from the very beginning to sort of be the mouthpiece of DDA. They're doing that effectively. Just a couple of project identified. A walkability plan, there was a draft presented April 22nd. We've mentioned in concert with Build a Generation, Main Street is supporting the 4th of July celebration. You've already talked about the cleanup on May 21st, which actually, with the Beautification Committee, Main Street is a supporting and strong support group with that as well. One thing that Main Street's looking at is a web page that will be dedicated to identifying all businesses in the Main Street corridor, inserting their web links and contact links to their businesses. We've talked about kiosks in various locations in downtown that identify various features within the downtown area, and I think you'll be able to see some of that in the coming months. We're also conducting a Main Street property and business inventory database. This will include inventory of property owners, tenants, square footage of buildings, description of businesses. This is an ongoing process that we do just to be able to identify, so when we have individuals that come particularly into our office, we can identify and get and lead particular new businesses to available square footage. Beautification is a major effort that you'll hear more about in terms of the downtown, not only an effort on part of Main Street, but also with the DDA. So you'll be hearing more about that moving forward. One other event that is coming up May 23rd at the Cultural Center from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. and it's being hosted by both the DDA and Main Street. Our DDA chairperson, Mary Jo Larson, will be the MC of that event. And basically, we've identified stakeholders, which include downtown business owners, downtown property owners, DDA board members, the Woodland Park Chamber, Main Street board and committee members, elected officials, and city staff. You may have gotten this invitation, but basically talking about access, safety, mobility, and parking. One of the concerns of the DDA board is that the businesses have a voice, and it's also a part of the visioning process for both Main Street and DDA, and that collective data will be used in both those efforts. Once a year, actually, I get the opportunity to go in front of the Pikes Peak Association of Realtors. If you're not familiar with them, it's a service organization that if you're a realtor in either El Paso or Teller County, you pay a fee. And as such, they award grants annually. The fourth time I think I've gone before this organization, and we received a check today for $8,000. The last several years, we've dedicated that to affordable housing. This year, we're dedicating that to Main Street. And so it's a nice, hopefully, grant that they'll be able to use to maybe match some other existing grants and do some of the projects that I mentioned going forward. If you can imagine sitting in a room, a long conference table, about 30 board members, I'm making a presentation with Dirk Draper, who's the Executive Director of Regional Business Development, and also the Executive Director of the Tri-Lakes Economic Development Group. One of the things that I've consistently gotten from this group is how impressed they are with Woodland Park. And, from the council, from staff, when they come up to Woodland Park, pass through, go to events, whatever, it is a shining example of what they believe is major benefit to our region. And so it's always good to hear those accolades, and I always try to pass those on to everybody in the business because it's a community effort, and certainly it's good to hear those kind of, particularly from realtors that are constantly in the market and looking at the various aspects. And they're very busy. The business is good, but again, it's good to hear those kind of comments. That's all I have this evening, Mayor and Council. If you have any questions or comments, I'd be glad to address those tonight.
Doesn't look like it.
No.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you.
You bet.
And that's all from the staff this evening, Mayor.
Great, thank you. If there's nothing else this evening, this meeting's adjourned.